I'm here at the Diamond Hotel in Manila for an exclusive interview with the composer and lyricist of long-time running Broadway productions such as Wicked, Pippin, and Godspell, the one and only Mr. Stephen Schwartz. So Stephen, tell us, what fascinates you the most about musical theater that you've decided to devote your entire professional career to it?
I just love that format for telling stories. The combination of drama and songs and choreography and scenic elements, and being able to tell a story using all of that is very compelling to me. I think when it works, it's the most effective way to tell a story, and it just stays inside you, in your heart and your mind. So, you know, I've always wanted to be part of that.
Stephen, can you actually walk us through your process from composition to actual mastering of the music?
Sure. I mean, each song is its own assignment. It's part of telling a bigger story. So the first thing is deciding where to do a song and what it's about, and what the character is doing, or why is he or she or they singing. Then I try to come up with a title, and that can take a little while, because I find having a title for a song helps me to figure out the structure. And then it's just a matter of trying to be the character in that, or characters in that situation. How would they sound? How would their emotion translate into music, and so on, and just keep working at it until I feel as if I have that part of the story told.
Is the process different across different genres, such as film, television, musical theater? And we also know you did opera for Seance on a Wet Afternoon.
Yeah, sure. Each genre has its own sort of things that you can do, and things that one doesn't do so effectively. In movies, one has to be aware that the camera is going to be moving, and so you have to come up with something that can be in motion, because they're motion pictures. Theater can be much more stand and sing. And then opera, the sort of through line is much more self-evident and much more present, maybe, than sort of a piece which has individual songs. Even though there is a musical superstructure, it's not as compelling, maybe, as an opera.
Wicked is one of the most popular musicals in the last decade, and we also know that you had a big hand in getting the ball rolling on this project. Can you tell us, why was it so important for you to be a part of Wicked?
I just loved the idea of it. As soon as I heard about Gregory Maguire's book, I thought it was such a great idea. And it spoke to me in terms of a lot of themes that I'm interested in. It's about an outsider trying to decide how much she's willing to give up of her own soul to fit in. There are a lot of sort of political and social ramifications and commentary contained in the idea of what the world sees and what's really going on behind the scenes, etc. So, and then there are several other, the relationship between the two women and how they affect one another resonated for me in terms of relationships I've had in my own life. So there was a lot that was sort of personally compelling to me about it.
Stephen, you have a knack for turning the villain into a good guy. Case in point is Defying Gravity and Elphaba. And your shading of Elphaba, I must say, is very colorful.
I think that's a good pun. I think there isn't really a difference in the writing process. All the characters that I write, whether it's Elphaba, whether it's a sort of villain, I suppose, like Frollo in Hunchback of Notre Dame, who's one of my favorite characters to have written, they're all parts of me. I'll try and find, you know, what do I have inside me that is like this character, or resonates with this character, and I try to get to that so that I can write about every character as honestly. And I mean, it's sort of, you were talking about your experience at Lee Strasberg School. It's basically doing that, but instead of performing a role that's already written, getting in touch with that character in oneself and writing that way. But it's very similar to the techniques that you study.
Okay, so throw out the names that first come out to you, but the greatest musical influences you have in the genres that I name, such as, let's start with classical.
Many. Beethoven, Bach, and then up to Copland, and the Ravel, and sort of the Stravinsky, Rachmaninoff, definitely,
Okay.
and Puccini, definitely Puccini. Yeah, so
Okay.
I would say, just coming off the top of my head,
Right.
those are ones that I can sort of hear things in my work.
How about pop?
Sort of the singer-songwriters when I grew up with are the most influential on me. That would be Joni Mitchell, Laura Nyro, James Taylor, Paul Simon, the Beatles, groups like the Mamas and Papas and Jefferson Airplane, and more recently I would say Sting has been very influential on me. A country writer named Mary Chapin Carpenter. Those are ones that I think of, that for pop.
Alternative.
Not so much alternative, though my daughter was an alternative fan, so I heard sort of like the whole time of like Nine Inch Nails and those. But I can't say that they've had that had a huge influence on my writing, though I sort of enjoyed listening to some of them.
How about jazz?
Jazz, not so much. I'm not a huge jazz fan, I have to tell you the truth. I guess the only jazz composer that was sort of influential on me, particularly rhythmically, would be Dave Brubeck.
Rap?
I don't like rap. I don't get it. It doesn't seem like music to me. Having said that, I've seen rap incorporated into the theater, particularly by a writer, composer who's a friend of mine, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who used rap, I think, very effectively in the Heights. And I just saw a reading of a new show that Lin is working on called the Hamilton Mixtapes, that uses rap a lot, even though it's a story about the American Revolution. And it's fantastic. And the use of rap and just his use of words. When rap is used like rapid fire poetry, that's when I find it the most effective. But I feel most of the time it's just people posing as gangsters.
Musical theater, lastly?
The biggest influences on me for musical theater, I would say, were Rodgers and Hammerstein, both in terms of the how they used music, how they told stories through music, but then there are several others. Bach and Harnick were influential on me. I would say Jerome Kern as a composer, definitely Irving Berlin as a composer. Those were maybe my biggest influences from musical theater.
Stephen, we also know that your son Scott has followed in your footsteps as a composer. Can you please share with us some advice that you've told him that you can also share with other aspiring musicians?
Well, I think my son Scott is quite a successful director, and now we're getting to work together a lot, which is really fun. I think the important thing for Scott was to know that it's a tough business, and people will always be criticizing you and taking shots at you. And sometimes things don't succeed despite all your best efforts, and sometimes they succeed better than maybe you think they have a right to, and you just have to take things in stride. You have to be resilient, and I think that's very important for people trying to be in the theater in any capacity, because it's a tough business. You have to be ready for it to be tough.
What do you think are the biggest challenges of being president of the Dramatist Guild of America?
I don't see it as a challenge. I see it as a privilege. I love being able to represent my fellow playwrights and composers and lyricists, and we're working very hard to try and improve relationships between writers and directors, or the writers and the producers, to fight for the rights of writers, but not have these sort of strange enmities that have arisen. But yeah, it's a great privilege to work in that capacity for the Dramatist Guild and for my colleagues and compatriots.
And lastly, looking back at your illustrious career, what is the one piece of music that you would like to be remembered by the most?
I don't know that there's one piece of work that I'd like to be most remembered for, but I do feel that there's a lot in my show, Children of Eden, that speaks about my philosophy, about life and about the world and about personal responsibility. So maybe some of the things that I was able to talk about in that, I wouldn't mind if they were remembered.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stephen Schwartz. It has truly been a privilege.
Thank you, my pleasure. Great questions.
And that was Mr. Stephen Schwartz. This is Gitanji, Rappler, Manila.